On this occasion, I shall include the notes of a certain person. That person is not I, but someone else entirely. I think no further forward is needed. Here to the top, welcome to Bobok, a cutesy story, not cute at all, visual novel story about a certain person that for sure is not Dostoevsky. So without further ado, let's give this game a try. It's not really that known, but it gave me something and I'm really curious about it. The notes of a certain person. Yeah? Open? Do I need to open a door? Are you gonna open a door? Oh no, my face is in the way! Wait, I'm not Semyon Ardalionovich. Why will you ever be sober, Ivan Ivanovich? Tell me that, pray. A strange requirement. A strange requirement, I did not resent it. I'm a timid man, but here they have actually made me out mad. An artist painted my portrait as it happened. After all, you are a literary man, he said. I submitted, he exhibited it. I read, go and look at the morbid face, suggesting insanity. It may be so, but think of putting it so bluntly into print. In print, everything ought to be decorous. There ought to be ideals, while instead of that, say it indirectly at least. That's what you have style for, but no, he doesn't care to do it indirectly. Nowadays, humor and a fine style have disappeared, and abuse is accepted as wit. I do not resent it, but God knows I am not enough of a literary man to go out of my mind. This is interesting. You have a very nice alcohol problem. I can touch stuff. I have written a novel. It has not been published. I have written articles. They have been refused. Those articles I took about from one editor to another. Everywhere they refused them. You have no salt, they told me. What sort of salt do you want? I asked with a jeer. Ethic salt? They did not even understand. What about the bottles? What else? You really do have some... Oh! For the most part, I translate from the French for the book's letters. I write advertisements for shopkeepers too. Unique opportunity, fine tea from our own plantations. I made a nice little sum over a panegyric on His deceased Excellency Potter Matveyevich. Yeah. I compiled The Art of Pleasing the Ladies, a commission from a bookseller. I have brought out some 6 little works of this kind in the course of my life. I'm thinking of making a collection of the bon mots of Voltaire, but I'm afraid it may seem a little flat to our people. Voltaire's no good now. Nowadays we want a cudgel, not Voltaire. We know each other's last teeth out nowadays. Well, so that's the whole extent of my literary activity. Though indeed I do send round letters to the editors, gratis and fully signed. I give them all sorts of counsels and admonitions, criticize and point out the truth path. The letter I sent last week to an editor's office was the 40th I had sent in the last 2 years. I have wasted 4 rubles over stamp alone for them. My temper is at the bottom of it all. So you're not doing so great, but you still have money for alcohol? What are you reading? I believe that the artist who painted me did so not for the sake of literature, but for the sake of 2 symmetrical rats on my forehead, a natural phenomenon, he would say. They have no idea, so now they're out of phenomenon. and didn't he succeed in getting my words in his portrait to the life? That is what they call realism. And as to madness, a great many people were put down as mad among us last year. And in such language, with such original talent, and yet after all it appears, however, one ought to have foreseen it long ago. That is rather artful, so that from the point of view of pure art one may really commend it. Well, but after all, the so-called madmen have turned out cleverer than ever. So it seems the critics can call them mad, but they cannot produce anyone better. The wisest of all, in my opinion, is he who can, if only once a month, call himself a fool. A faculty unheard of nowadays. In old days, once a year, at any rate, a fool would recognize that he was a fool. But nowadays, not a bit of it. And they have so muddled things up that there is no telling a fool from a wise man. They have done that on purpose. I remember a witty Spanish saying, when 250 years ago the French built their first madhouse, they have shut up all their fools in a house apart to make sure that they are wise men themselves. Just so you don't show your own wisdom by shutting someone else in a madhouse. Kay has gone out of his mind means that we are sane now. No, it doesn't mean that yet. This is interesting. I like it. Oh! Do you want some alcohol? Hang it through. Why am I maundering on? I go on grumbling and grumbling. Even my maidservant is sick of me. Yesterday, a friend came to see me. Your style is changing, he said. It is choppy. You chop and chop. And then a parenthesis in the parenthesis. Then you stick in something else in brackets. Then you begin chopping and chopping again. Your friend is right. Are you okay? Are you going mad? Something strange is happening to me. My character is changing and my head aches. I am beginning to see and hear strange things. Not voices exactly, but as though someone beside me were muttering. Bobok, Bobok, Bobok. What's the meaning of this Bobok? I must divert my mind. And so it begins. It's so interesting. St. Petersburg, let's go. 1873. I went out in a search of diversion. I hit upon a funeral. A funeral? At least it's a happy one. A distant relation, a collegiate counselor. However, a widow and 5 daughters, all marriageable young ladies. What must it come to even to keep them in sleepers? Their father managed it, but now there is only a little pension. They will have to eat humble pie. They have always received me ungraciously, and indeed I should not have gone to the funeral now, had it not been of a particular circumstance. I followed the procession of the cemetery with the rest. They were stuck up and held aloof from me. My uniform was certainly rather shabby. It's 25 years. I believe since I was at the cemetery. What a wretched place. To begin with the smell, there were 15 hearses with poles, varying in expensiveness. There were actually 2 catafalques. One was general and one some ladies. There were many mourners, a great deal of fine mourning, and a great deal of open gaiety. I botched the English so hard, but it's fine. They clearly have nothing to complain of. It brings them a good income. But the smell. I should not like to be one of the clergy here. I kept glancing at the faces of the dead, cautiously disturbing my impressionability. Some had a mild expression, some looked unpleasant. As a rule, the smiles were disagreeable, and in some cases very much so. I don't like them. They haunt one's dreams. During this, my face. I should bring this down even more. During the service, I went out of the church into the air. It was a gray day, but dry. It was cold too, but then it was October. I walked about among the tombs. They're of different grades. The third grade cost 30 rubles. It's a decent and not so very dear. The first two grades are tombs in the church, and under the porch they cost a pretty penny. On this occasion they were burying in tombs of the third grade 6 persons, among them the general and the lady. I looked into the graves, and it was horrible. Water and such water. Absolutely green, but there, why talk of it? The gravedigger was bending it out every minute. I went out while the service was going on and strolled outside the gates. Close by was an almshouse, and a little further off there was a restaurant. Did you go to the restaurant and have a mega pint? It was not a bad little restaurant. There was lunch and everything. There are lots of the mourners here. I noticed a great deal of gaiety and genuine heartiness. I had something to eat and drink. So you joined, and eat for free. Great. Then I took part in the bearing of the coffin from the church to the grave. Why is it that corpses in their coffins are so heavy? They say it's due to some sort of inertia, that the body is no longer directed by its owner, or some nonsense of that sort, in opposition to the laws of mechanics and common sense. I don't like to hear people who have nothing but a general education venture to solve the problems that require special knowledge, and with us, that's done continually. Civilians love to pass options about subjects that are the province of the soldier and even of the field marshal, while men who have been educated as engineers prefer discussing philosophy and political economy. I did not go to the requirement service. I have some pride, and if I'm only owning to some special necessities, why force myself on their diners, even if it be a funeral dinner? So I didn't want to eat with them, huh? Are you having a moment? The only thing I don't understand is why I stayed at the cemetery. I sat on a tombstone and sank into appropriate reflections. Are you thinking about why are we here, just to die? What's this? I don't like reading the epitaphs of tombstones. They are everlasting in the same. An unfinished sandwich was lying on the tombstone near me, stupid and inappropriate. I threw it on the ground, as it was not bread but only a sandwich. Though I believe it is not a sin to throw bread on the earth, but only on the floor. I must look it up in Sovereign's calendar. What else? I began with the Moscow exhibition and ended with reflecting upon astonishment in the abstract. My deductions about astonishment were this: to be surprised that everything is stupid, of course, and to be astonished at nothing is a great deal more becoming and for some reason accepted as good form. But that is not really true. To my mind, to be astonished at nothing is much more stupid than to be astonished at everything. And moreover, to be astonished at nothing is almost the same as feeling respect for nothing. And indeed, a stupid man is incapable of feeling respect. But what I desire most of all is to feel respect. I thirst to feel respect. One of my acquaintances said to me the other day, "He thirsts to feel respect. Goodness, I thought what would happen to you if you dared to print that nowadays." So I think at that point I sank into forgetfulness. Are you sleeping on a tombstone? I suppose I sat there a long time, too long a time in fact. I must have lain down on a long stone which was of the shape of a marble coffin. And how it happened, I don't know, but I began to hear things all of sorts being said. At first I did not pay attention to it, but treated it with contempt. But the conversation went on. I heard a muffled sound as though the speaker's mouths were covered with a pillow, and at the same time they were distinct and very near. I came to myself, sat up, and began listening attentively. Your Excellency, it's utterly impossible. You led hearts, I return your lead. And here you play the 7 of diamonds. You ought to have given me a hint about diamonds. Pervoido Vasily Vasilich. What? Play by hand and fast rules? Where is the charm of that? You must, Your Excellency. One can't do anything without something to go upon. We must play with dummy. Let one hand not be turned up. Well, you won't find a dummy here. What contained words? And I was queer and unexpected. Once was such a ponderous, dignified voice, the other softly suave. I should not have believed it if I had not heard it myself. I had not been the required dinner, I believe. And yet how could they playing preference here, and what genre was this? That the sound came from under the tombstone of there could be no doubt. I bent down and read the tomb. Here lies the body of Major General Pervoidov, a cavalier of such and such orders. Passed away in August of this year. 57. Rest below ashes till the joyful dawn. Dash it. It really is a general. There was no monument on the grave from which the obsequious voice came. There was only a tombstone. He must have been a fresh arrival. From his voice, he was a lower court councillor. Shopkeeper. Oh ho ho! I heard in a new voice a dozen yards from the general's resting place, coming from quite a fresh grave. The voice belonged to a man and a plebeian, mawkish with its affection of religious fervor. Oh ho ho ho! Avdotia Ignatievna. Oh, here he is hiccuping again. Cried the haughty and disdainful voice of an irritated lady, apparently of the high society. It is an affliction to be by this shopkeeper. I didn't hiccup. Why, I've had nothing to eat. It's simply my nature. Really, madame, you don't seem able to get rid of your caprices here. Then why didn't you came with lie down here? They put me here. My wife and little children put me here. I did not lie down here to myself. The mystery of that. And I would not have lain down beside you, not for any money. I lie here as benefiting my fortune, judging by the price, for we can always do that, pay for a tomb of the 3rd grade. You made money, I suppose, you fleet people? Fleece you indeed. You haven't seen the color of your money since January. There's a little bill against you at the shop. Well, that's really stupid. To try and recover debts here is too stupid. To my thinking, go to the surface, ask my niece. She is my heiress. There's no asking anyone now and no going anywhere. We have both reached our limit and before the judgment seat of God are equally in our sins. In our sins? Don't dare to speak to me. Oh ho ho ho. You see, the shopkeeper obeys the lady, Your Excellency. Why shouldn't he? Why, Your Excellency? Because, as we all know, things are different here. Different? How? We are dead, so to speak, Your Excellency. Oh yes, but still. Well, this is an entertainment. It's a fine show, I must say. If it has come to this down here, what can one expect on the surface? But what a queer business. I went on listening, however, to with extreme indignation. Yes, I should like a taste of life. Yes, you know, I should like a taste of life. I heard a new voice suddenly somewhere in the space between the general and the irritable lady. Do you hear, Your Excellency? Our friend is at the same game again. For 3 days at a time he says nothing, and then he bursts out with, I should like a taste of life. Yes, a taste of life. And with such appetite, and such frivolity. It gets hold of him, Your Excellency, and do you know he's growing sleepy, quite sleepy. He has been here since April, and then all of a sudden I should like a taste of life. It is rather dull, though. It is, Your Excellency. Shall we taste Avdotia again? What? No, spare me, please. I can endure that queersome virago. And I can't endure either of you. You are both of you balls and can't tell me anything ideal. I know one little story about you, Your Excellency. Don't turn up your nose, please. How a manservant swept you out from under a married couple's bed one morning. Nasty woman. Avdotia, ma'am. My dear lady, don't be angry, but tell me, am I going through the ordeal by torment now, or it is something else? Ah, he is at it again, as I expected, for there's a smell from him which means he's turning round. I'm not turning round, ma'am, and there's no particular smell from me, for I've kept my body whole as it should be, while you're regularly high, for the smell is really horrible even for a place like this. I don't speak of it, merely from politeness. Ah, you horrid, insulting wretch! He positively stinks and talks about me. Oh ho ho, if only the time of my requiem would come quickly. I should hear their tearful voices over my head, my wife's lament and my children's soft weeping. Well, that's thing to fret for. They'll stuff themselves with the funeral rice and go home. Oh, I wish somebody would wake up. Wait a bit. The new arrivals will speak. And are there any young people among them? Yes, there are. There are some not more than lads. Oh, how welcome that would be. Haven't they begun yet? Even those who came the day before yesterday haven't awakened yet, Your Excellency. As you know, they sometimes don't speak for a week. It is a good job that today and yesterday and the day before they brought a whole lot, as it is, they are all last year of 70 feet round. Yes, it will be interesting. Yes, Your Excellency, they buried Tarasevich, the Privy Councillor, today. I knew it from the voices. I know this his nephew. He helped to lower the coffin just now. Where is he then? 5 steps from you, Your Excellency, on the left, almost at your feet. You should make his acquaintance, Your Excellency. No, it's not for me to make advances. Oh, he will begin of himself, Your Excellency. He will be flattered. Leave it to me, and I... Uh-oh, what is happening to me? A new arrival. A new arrival. Thank God, and how quick he's been. Sometimes they don't say a word for a week. Oh, I believe it's a young man. It was a complication and so sudden. Only the evening before, she said to me, there's a complication, and I died suddenly before morning. Oh. Well, there's no help for it, young man. You must be comforted. You are kindly welcome to our well of Joseph. So call it. We are kind-hearted people. You will come to know us and appreciate us, Major General Vasily Vasilich, staff at your service. Oh no, certainly not. I was at shoot. I had a complication, you know. At first it was my chest and a cough, and then I cough a cold, my lungs and influenza, and all of a sudden, quite unexpectedly, the worst of all has it's being so unexpected. You said it become with the chest. Yes, my chest and cataract, and then no cataract, but still the chest, and I couldn't breathe, and you know, I know, but if it was the chest, you ought to have gone to Eke and not to Schultz. You know, I kept meaning to go to Butkin's and all once. Butkin is quite prohibitive. Oh no, he's not forbidding at all. I've heard he's so attentive and forgets everything beforehand. His Excellency was referring to his fees. Oh, not at all. He only asks 3 rubles and he makes such an examination. They give you a prescription and I was very anxious to see him, for I have been told, well, gentlemen, had I better go to Ehi or to Butkin. What? To whom? The general's corpse shook with agreeable laughter. The government clerk echoed in this falsetto. Dear boy, dear delightful boy, how I love you. I wish they had put someone like you next to me. No, that was too much, and these were the dead of our times. Still, I ought to listen to more and not be in too great a hurry to draw conclusions. That shivering new arrival, I remember him just now in his coffin, had the expression of a frightened chicken, the most revolting expression in the world. However, let us wait and see. Oops. What happened to the boy? He looked like he was dead. But what happened next was such a bedlam that I could not keep it all in my memory, for a great many woke up at once. An official state council woke up and began discussing at once the project of a new subcommittee in a government department of the probable transfer of various functionaries in connection with the subcommittee, which very greatly interested the general. I must confess I learned a great deal that was new to myself, so much that I marveled at the channels by which one may sometimes in the metropolis run government news. Then an engineer half woke up, but for a long time muttered absolute nonsense, so that our friend left off worrying him and let him lie till he was ready. At last, the distinguished lady who had been buried in the morning under the catafalque showed symptoms of the reanimation of the tomb. Lebesyanikov, for the obscurest lower court counsel whom I detested and who lays beside the general, was called, it appears, Lebesyanikov, become much excited and surprised that they were all waking up soon this time. I must own I was surprised too, though some of those who woke and been buried for 3 days, as for instance a very young girl of 16 who kept giggling in a horrible and predatory way. Okay. So why are the dead speaking? Your Excellency, PV Councillor Tarasevich is waking. Huh? What? There was a note of ill-humored peremptoriness in the sound of his voice. I listened with curiosity, for during the last few days I had heard something about Tarasevich shocking and upsetting in the extreme. It is I, Your Excellency, so far only I. What is your petition? What do you want? Merely to inquire after Your Excellency's health in these unaccustomed surroundings. Everyone feels at first, as it were, oppressed. General wishes to have the honor of making Your Excellency acquaintance and hopes. I never heard of him. Surely, Your Excellency, General Voyadov Vasily Vasilich. Are you General? No, Your Excellency, I'm only the lower court councillor Lebesyanikov, at your service, but General Pervoyedov... Nonsense, and I beg you to leave me alone. Let him be. General at last himself checked with dignity the disgusting officiousness of his psychopath in the grave. He's not fully awake, Your Excellency. You must consider that. It's the novelty of it all. When he is fully awake, he will take it differently. Let him be. Vasily Vasilich. Hey, Your Excellency. A perfect new voice shouted loudly and aggressively from close beside Avdotya. It was a voice of gentlemanly insolence, with a languid pronunciation now fashionable and an arrogant drawl. I've been watching your oar for the last 2 hours. Do you remember me, Vasily? My name is Klinovich. We met at the Volokodinsky, where you two were received as a guest. I'm sure I don't know why. What? Count Petrovich? Can it be really you? And at such an early age, how sorry I am to hear it. Oh, I'm sorry myself, though I really don't mind, and I want to assume myself as far as I can everywhere. And I'm not a count, but a baron, only a baron. We are only a set of scurvy barons, risen from being flunkies, but why, I don't know why, I don't care. I am only a scoundrel of the pseudo-aristocrat society, and I'm regretted as a charming police son. My father is a wretched little general, and my mother was at one time received an atelier. With the help of the Zifel, I forget 50,000 rubles notes last year, and then I informed against him, while Julie Charpentier de Louison carried off the money to Bordeaux. And only fancy I was engaged to be married to a girl still at school, 3 months under 16, with a dowry of 19,000. That's disgusting, sir. Avdotia, do you remember how you seduced me 15 years ago when I was a boy of 14 in the Corps de Pugs? Ah, that's you, you rascal. Well, you are a god sent anyway, for here. You are mistaken in suspecting your neighbor, the business gentleman, of unpleasant fragrance. I said nothing, but I laughed. The stretch came from me. They had to bury me in a nailed-up coffin. You horrid creature. Still, I am glad you're here. You can't imagine the lack of life and wit here. Quite so, and I intend to start here something original. Your Excellency, I don't mean you Pervoedov, Your Excellency the other one, Tarasevich, the Privy Councillor. Answer, I am Klinovich, who took you to Mile? Furienland, do you hear? I do, and I'm delighted, and trust me. I wouldn't trust you with a halfpenny, and I don't care. I simply want to kiss you, dear old man, but luckily I can't. Do you know, gentlemen, what this Campierre's little game was? He died 3 or 4 days ago, and would you believe it, he left a deficit of 400,000 government money from the fund for widows and orphans. He was the sole person in control of it for some reason, so that his accounts were not audited for the last 8 years. He stole money! I can fancy what long faces they all have now, and what they call him. It's a delectable thought, isn't it? I have been wondering for the last year how a wretched old man of 70 gouty and rheumatic succeeded in preserving the physical energy for his debaucheries. And now the riddle is solved. Those widows and orphans, the very thought of them must have egged him on. I knew about it long ago. I was the only one who did know. It was Julie told me. And as soon as I discovered it, I attacked him in a friendly way at once in Easter week. Give me 25,000. If you don't, they look into your account tomorrow. And just fancy, he had only 13,000 left then. So it seems it was a very apropos he's dying now. Grandpère, do you hear? Cher, I quite agree with you. And there was no need for you to go into such details. Life is so full of suffering and torment, and so little to make up for it, that I wanted at last to be the rest. And so far as I can see, I hope to get all I can from here too. I bet that he has already sniffed Katish Berstov. Who? What Katish? Ah, what Katish? Why, here on the left, 5 paces from me and 10 from you. She has been here for 5 days, and if only you knew, Grandpère, what a little wretch she is. of God family and breeding and a monster and a regular monster. I did not introduce her to anyone there. I was the only one who knew her. Katich answer. Hehehe. The girl responded with a giggling laugh in which there was a note of something as sharp as the prick of a needle. And a little blonde. I have long cherished the dream of a little fair thing of 15 and just in such surroundings. Ah, the monster. Enough. We shall soon arrange things better. The great thing is to spend the rest of our time cheerfully, but what time? Hey, you government clerk, or whatever it is, I heard that's your name. Simeon Iversich Liberznyadjigov, lower court counselor at your service. Very, very much delighted to meet you. I don't care whether you are delighted or not, but you seem to know everything here. Tell me first of all, we can talk? I've been wondering ever since yesterday. We are dead, and yet we are talking and seem to be moving, and yet we are not talking and not moving. What jugglery is this? If you want an explanation, Baron, Platon Nikolaevich could give you one better than I. What Platon is that? To the point, don't beat about the bush. Platon is our homegrown philosopher, scientist and master of arts. He has brought out several philosophical works, but for the last 3 months, he has been getting quite drowsy, and there is no stirring him up now. Once a week, he mutters something utterly irrelevant. To the point. He explains all this by the simplest fact, namely that when we were living on the surface, we mistakenly thought that there was dead. The body revives, as it were. Here, the remains of life are concentrated, but only in consciousness. I don't know how to express it, but life goes on, as it were by inertia. In his opinion, everything is concentrated somewhere in consciousness and goes on for 2 or 3 months, sometimes even for half a year. There is one here, for instance, who is almost completely decomposed, but once every 6 weeks, he suddenly utters one word, quite senseless, of course, about some Bobok. But you see, that's an imperceptible specks of life is still worn within him. It's rather stupid. Well, and how it is I have no sense of smell, and yet I feel they're strange. That on that point our philosopher is a bit foggy. It's apropos of smell, he said, that the stench one perceives here is, so to speak, moral. Is a stench of the soul, he says, that in these 2 or 3 months it may have time to recover itself, and this is, so to speak, the last mercy. Only I think, Baron, that these are mystic cravings, very excusable in his position. So you only have the consciousness, like you can talk, like only until you decompose, fully decompose. That's interesting. Enough. All the rest of it, I am sure, is nonsense. The great thing is that we have 2 or 3 months more of life, and then Bobok. I propose to spend those 2 months as agreeably as possible, and so to arrange everything on a new basis. Gentlemen, I propose to cast aside all shame. Let us cast aside all shame. Let us. And strange to say, several new voices were audible, which must have belonged to others newly awakened. The engineer, now fully awake, boomed out his agreement with particular delight. The girl Katish giggled gracefully. Oh, how I long to cast off all shame. I say it, Avdotia wants to cast off all the shame. No, 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 Klinevich, I was ashamed up there, all the shame, but here, I should like to cast off shame, I should like it awfully. I understand, Klinevich, that you want to rearrange life here on a new and rational principle. Oh, I don't care a hang about that. For that, we'll wait for Kudyar, who was brought here yesterday. When he wakes, he'll tell you all about it. He's such a personality, such a titanic personality. Tomorrow, they'll bring along another natural scientist, I believe an officer for certain, and 3 or 4 days later, a journalist. And I believe his editor with him. But just take them all, there will be a little group of us anyway, and things will arrange themselves. Though meanwhile, I don't want us to be telling lies. That's all I care about, for that is one thing that matters. One cannot exist on the surface without lying for life, and lying are synonymous. But here we will amuse ourselves by not lying. Hang it all, the grave has some value after all. We'll all tell our stories aloud, and we won't be ashamed of anything. First of all, I tell you about myself. I am one of the predatory kind, you know. All that was bound and held in cheeky by rotten cords up there on the surface. Await with cords and let us spend those 2 months in shameless truthfulness. Let us strip and be naked. Oh my god. To be naked, yeah. I see, we shall have fun here. I don't want icky after all. Give me a taste of life. Hehehehe. The great thing is that no one can interfere with us, and I thought I see Brevede's temper he can't reach me with his hand. Grandpere, do you agree? I fully agree, and wish the utmost satisfaction, but on condition that Katish is the first to give us her biography. I protest with all my heart. Your Excellency, the scoundrel Lebednyatnikov pursued him in a murmur of fussy excitement. Your Excellency, it will be to our advantage to agree. Here you see, there's this girl and all their little affairs. God damn it, man! There's the girl, it's true, but... It's our advantage, Your Excellency, upon my word it is. If only as an experiment, let us try it. Even in the grave, they won't let us rest in peace. In the first place, General, you are playing preferences the grave, and in the second, we don't care a hang about you. Sir, I beg you not to forget yourself. What? Why, you can't get at me? And I can't tease you from here as though you were Julie's lapdog? And another thing, gentlemen, how is he a general here? He was a general there, but he's may refuse. No, not may refuse, even here. Here you will rot in the grave, and 6 brass buttons will all be that will be left of you. Bravo, Klinovich, ha ha ha! I have served my sovereign, I have the sword. Your sword is only fit to prick mice, and you never draw it even for that. That makes no difference, I form a part of the whole. There are all sorts of the parts in a whole. What is happening? I don't understand what the sword stands for. We shall run away from the Persian like mice, they'll crush us to powder. Cried a voice in a distance that was unfamiliar to me, that was positively slappering with glee. The sword, sir, is an honor. The general cried, but only I heard him. There arose a prolonged and furious roar, clamor and hubbub, and only the hysterical impatient sequel of Avdotia were audible. But do let us make haste. When are we going to begin to cast all of the shame? Oh, the soul does in truth pass through torments. And here I suddenly sneeze. It happened suddenly and unintentionally, but the effect was striking. All became as silent as one expected to be in a churchyard. It all vanished like a dream. A real silence of the tomb set in. I don't believe they were ashamed on account of my presence. They had made up their minds to cast off all the shame. Did you just make them shut up? I waited 5 minutes, not a word, not a sound. It cannot be supported that they were afraid of my informing the police, for what could the police do to them? I must conclude that they had some secret unknown to the living, which they carefully concealed from every mortal. Well, my dears, I thought, I shall visit you again, and with those words I left the cemetery. No, that I cannot admit. No, I really cannot. The Bobok case does not trouble me, so that is what the Bobok signified. Depravity in such a place, depravity of the last aspirations, depravity of sodden and rotten corpses, and not even sparing the last moments of consciousness. Those moments were being granted, vouchsafed to them, and worst of all, in such a place. No, that I cannot admit. I shall go to other tombs, I shall listen everywhere. Certainly one ought to listen everywhere and not merely at one spot in order to form an idea. Perhaps one may come across something reassuring. But I shall certainly go back to those. They promise their biographies and anecdotes of all sorts too. But I shall go. I shall certainly go. It is a question of conscience. I shall take it to the Citizen. The editor there had his portrait exhibited too. Maybe he will print it. God damn it, you sneezed, and now I will never know what they did. Bobok, 1873. That was interesting. Really interesting. Was this everything? I think so. So yeah, this was all. So basically the dead people, yeah, this was all. So basically the dead people, when they wake up and they're not alive but not fully dead, and they have another couple of months before they decompose and the consciousness goes. That was really interesting. So yeah, that was Bobok, a very interesting novel story, kind of short story. I'm sure that we all understood that this was a Dostoevsky story. Very nice, very lovely. Loves the artwork. It was really good. The story was a little bit confusing for me, but that's just because my English problems. But you know what? I really enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. And that will be all for today. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like. Consider subscribing, because it will be so nice to have you here. And as always, I hope I can see you all on the next one. Bye!